Good morning, everybody. Welcome to episode 54 of McRae Live. It is 11:04 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here on this Tuesday, May the 12th, 2020. I am Dave McRae. Great to see everybody here. How y'all hanging in? You doing well? You doing well? Are you feeling the effects of the restraints of this quarantine stuff going on? Hey, hard to believe we're already up to 54 episodes. Incredible. Today, I want to talk about something a little different. Today, I want to discuss how to craft a micro-budgeted Halloween fan film. And the reason why I want to talk about that is because I get asked a fair bit on how to make my low-budget fan films or how to make their low-budget fan films. I get approached not a lot, but enough that I wanted to sort of talk about this today. And that is, Dave, I'm making a low-budget Halloween fan film, or I'm making this kind of little fan film. How do I make it look as professional as possible? And I thought that was a great topic for a show. So I have a little bit of experience in that area. And I thought I would kind of share sort of how to make your micro-budgeted Halloween fan films look as professional as possible. Now, obviously, it's not going to look like, if you have $100 in your pocket, it's not going to look like a $500,000 production. But with simple techniques and simple understanding of the filmmaking process and how to craft a film, you can actually make your little film look pretty good. And that's what I wanted to talk about today, because I think it's a very interesting sort of discussion. Now, I'm talking about micro-budgeted fan films. I'm not talking about Never Hike Alone. I'm not talking about Dylan's New Nightmare. I'm not talking about It's Me, Billy. I mean, we are professionally producing and creating those films. I'm talking about, like, you and your friends and your cell phone. You know what I'm talking about? That's what I'm talking about. And I have the perfect example of something like that, because about a year and a half or so ago, my buddy Bruce and I, in September of 2018, I believe it was, I can't remember now if it was after we saw Halloween 2018 at the world premiere, or if it was before. I think it was after. It was towards the end of September. Bruce and I created a little Halloween fan film called Haddonfield Reaper. And it was shot entirely on my phone, my Galaxy S9 Plus, using nothing but available lighting, a gimbal, all right? And that's it. I mean, but I'm going to dive into sort of what we did to make it look as good as it does, all things considered, right? And we're also going to watch it together as well, because I have it up here. So this is going to be kind of like a director's commentary / whatever the hell you want to call it. We're going to watch it together, which I think will be kind of cool. Hey, Super Chat comes in from Intel Wild and says, hey, Dave, big question here. A lot rides on your answer. Oh, this should be fascinating. Are you an Android or Apple guy when it comes to smartphones? Oh, well, I just kind of gave that away. I am a Android guy. I've always had a Galaxy phone. Before the Galaxy, well, let's see. From 2009 to 2011, I had a BlackBerry, as a lot of people did. And then in 2011, I purchased something called, up here in Canada, it was released under the name the Samsung Captivate. Samsung Captivate. Now, that essentially was Samsung's first Galaxy. Like, it essentially was the S1, okay? It wasn't called the S1, it was called the Captivate. And then they did release a follow-up to the Captivate called the Galaxy S2. It was called the S2. And then S3 and 4 and 5. And I haven't had the S2. I went from the Captivate, or the S1, for all intents and purposes, to the S3. I had the S3, which was a great phone. Then I went to the S6, and now I'm at the S9. I find that, to upgrade phones, there's no sense in upgrading every year or even every 2 years. I find to get to really notice a difference, to really notice the upgrade in power or RAM or processing or, megapixels on the phone or all the tiny, details and features, it's usually one every 3 phones, I find anyway. So that's why I've gone from like the 1 to the 3 to the 6 to the 9. So yes, I am a Android user. Just always have been, I guess. I mean, I could have gone iPhone in 2011, but I went Android. And I've just have never looked back, folks. Have never looked back until Wild follows up with 100. That's what I wanted to hear. It doesn't really make a difference to me, but hey, I'm glad that you're happy with it. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about how to create a micro-budgeted Halloween fan film. Now, again, I'm talking about, using your phone, or maybe you have a DSLR, but you're not hiring actors, you're not hiring crew, you're not, maybe you're not a filmmaker yourself. So, you're only going by what sort of you've seen or learned kind of thing. But it's important to note that whether you are shooting a multi-million-dollar picture, or whether you are shooting a micro-budgeted film, and it doesn't have to be a Halloween fan film. It can be a micro-budgeted Elm Street film, Scream film, Friday the 13th film, right? I'm using Halloween as sort of the main area of discussion, I guess, because I've made a lot of little micro-budgeted Halloween fan films. Again, I mean, I don't want to, create any misunderstanding that if you apply the certain things I'm going to say, your film is going to look like a multi-million-dollar film. I'm not suggesting that, but there are some things that you can do to improve the quality of your film. And the first thing you can do is, of course, it comes down. Look, I understand that you are more than likely going to be using your friends in your fan film. If we're talking about micro-budgeted, low-budget fan films, right? I understand that. I mean, I've done that, right? So no one is expecting, at least they shouldn't be expecting, Academy Award-winning acting, right? But what you can do to help is you can certainly write a script. Write it all out, write the dialogue out, write the story so you know what you're doing. A lot of the times, fan films tend to sort of run by this, kind of fly by the seat of their pants, as they say, right? So there's certain, they kind of have an idea of what they want to do, an idea of what they want to say, but they just kind of wing it for the most part. I think it's important, you don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but I think it's important that if you have some cool ideas, to write it down and write your dialogue down and go through it. Don't just settle on a first draft. Go through a second draft, a third draft. I mean, even though it's a micro-budgeted little Halloween fan film that's not going to necessarily, change the face of cinema, it's something you want to be proud of. So, look at your little script, go through it, however long it is. Try to keep it short. That's one thing that even I've learned when making little Halloween fan films, is the shorter the better, because the longer you go on, the more of an opportunity there is for the flaws to show through. And usually micro-budgeted films are not interesting enough, are not shot well enough, are not produced well enough. The production value is not good enough for the movie to be an hour and a half long. It's just not. The attention span for people is not really there for something like that. But they can be really good enough to have something that's 10 minutes long, 15 minutes long, 20 minutes long, for sure. So, yeah, so first things first, keep in mind that you want to have something that's on the shorter end. That should be the first thing, actually. And the second thing is, when you are writing your script, because I think you should write it down for sure, to keep it within like 10, 15 pages, right? Because that's roughly about a 10, 15-minute movie. There's a rule of thumb, in Hollywood when you're writing a screenplay that usually it's a minute a page, right? So a 90-minute movie is roughly a 90-minute screenplay. Now that's not an exact science. Obviously, that depends on how much dialogue is on a page, how much action is on a page, how much you milk a certain scene, how much you linger on certain shots. I mean, obviously, a 90-page screenplay can be 110 minutes long. I mean, that's possible, but usually that's kind of the rule of thumb. So that's first thing, right? Be as prepared as you possibly can. So your actors, right? Your friends can look at the script and study it, right? And go home and learn the lines or learn the gist of the lines, right? Get as familiar as you can as possible. When you are to help certainly with untrained actors, people who are not actors themselves, maybe be a little lenient on getting things word for word. Maybe allow some wiggle room for these, your friends who are not actors, right? Because the goal is to have them speak the words as if they were the ones that thought them themselves. So it doesn't feel like they're line reading. It doesn't feel like they're trying to think of the line, right? It doesn't feel wooden. Some people are naturally more charismatic and outgoing than others. So you will always have, if you have an ensemble of friends, there's no doubt going to be a couple that are probably better actors than, the other person in the corner. Naturally, that's going to happen. So that's something you may want to think about as well, is that when you're creating a fan film, maybe try not to create a film that is that has a massive ensemble of friends, right? Because the more friends you have to gather together, the more likely it is that you're going to gather weaker links. And that's not personal. That's just the reality of not every one of my friends would make a good actor. I can think of a few that I probably wouldn't put in a fan film. So it's that kind of thing where you want to make sure that you are keeping it sort of tight, right? You know what I mean? So maybe you have one or two people, you have Michael Myers, maybe you have a final girl and maybe her boyfriend or something, you know what I mean? Kind of keep it tight. Don't have this massive ensemble of like 15 people, because then again, the flaws are going to start to show through. So it's important that your friends have the opportunity to learn these lines and maybe allow them some wiggle room to be able to make it their own. So if the line is something like, Judy, get out of there, he's coming after you, maybe allow your buddy to make it his own, something that he would say, so it feels more natural to him, as long as he's getting the same thing across. So it's something like, maybe instead of Judy, get the hell out of there, he's coming after you, which isn't really a hard line, but I'm trying to make this as simple as possible. Maybe he says something like, Judy, look out, get out of there, he's right there. I mean, say maybe that just feels more natural for him or her, right? So you're like, yeah, what the hell? It's the same thing. And it comes off better. Allow him to say it. Allow him or her to say it, because it's essentially the same thing. Don't get so kind of, nitpicky about having it verbatim, unless you have a friend who just happens to be an incredibly talented actor. So, those are things to think about, right? That will improve sort of the performance side of things and the overall kind of execution. So you want to make it smaller. You don't want to make it really, really long. You want to be able to kind of make it tight. Because again, the longer it goes on, the more likely that you're going to have your flaws are going to show through. The other thing too is understand how to craft your shots. Take your time in crafting your shots. And what I mean by that is don't shoot everything from one angle. Don't shoot everything from a master shot. If two people are having a conversation at a kitchen table, don't set up your camera in the background and just shoot 5 minutes of this one shot of these two people having a conversation. Shoot that conversation 6 times. So what you do is you shoot it from this perspective, right? So you get the master shot. They're called master shots, right? It's like an establishing shot of the environment is your master shot. So we know where they are, right? You get everybody in there, there's your master shot. And you shoot the conversation from that angle. But then you shoot the conversation again. So then you go in and you shoot Bob, who's, so you have him say all his lines as if he's talking to John, right? And then you shoot the conversation again. assuming you don't have a 2 or 3 camera setup, right? You shoot the conversation again, but then you shoot John's lines. And then in post-production, see, you can cut between all these shots. And it makes it much more visually interesting and much more, professional looking. But again, it all depends on how you frame those shots as well. You know what I mean? You don't want to, and how you light it. Lighting is really important. But we're talking about camera angles here, so I'll get to that in a second. But learning to craft your shots is really important. Don't shoot everything from one angle. And, also too, when you're having conversations with your actors, have them doing something. So they sit down at the table. Why are they sitting at the table? Are they eating? Maybe they're having lunch, right? Maybe one of them is having lunch and John comes over and interrupts Bob, who's having lunch. He's like, yeah, come on in. So John naturally sits down and is talking to Bob while he's having his lunch. You know what I mean? But they're doing something. There's a purpose for them sitting at the table. It's not just to have the conversation. It's that John is, or Bob is having lunch, or maybe Bob invites John over for lunch. You know what I mean? Or there's a reason for it, right? It's not just, oh, let's have the actors sit here to have this conversation. Oh, let's have them go over here let's have them sit on the couch to have the conversation. Have them doing something when they're on the couch. I see that a lot in low budgeted micro fan films. They'll just sit on the couch, have a 5-minute conversation. Well, maybe that's not the best thing to do. Maybe have them do a walk and talk. Maybe they go outside and go for a walk. Not the best thing to do, but it's a little more interesting than having them just sit on the couch. So understand how to craft your shots and shoot your scenes from several different angles. If you're just using your phone or one, DSLR, shoot a scene from multiple different angles, and that way you can splice the conversation together, and it'll improve your scene and your shots by quite a bit. As well, when you're following somebody around, right? So let's say somebody hears a noise, and they're walking around the house. Don't follow them around the house as if you are the camera guy. You can get a shot like that, but then make sure you're you're shooting that scene from many different angles. So you show them coming up the stairs, and then you get a shot of them going up the stairs, right? So it's from here, they're coming up, and then we cut back here and we see them going up, you know what I mean? And we see them coming around a corner, and we see them opening a door, and make sure you get a lot of coverage, you know what I mean? So it's always better to have much more shit than you need, right? There's an old saying, of course, that I always say, it's better to have it, not need it, than need it and not have it, right? So get as much coverage as you possibly can, and if 40% of it is left on the cutting room floor, as they say, back in the day when they actually used to physically cut and splice film. I mean, that's what they used to do. I did that in college. Of course, now we don't actually do that, but then so what, right? I mean, so 30% of the stuff you shot isn't used. Who cares, right? At least you have it in case you need it. And I cannot tell you how many times I will shoot something, I'm like, I don't fucking need that. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad I shot that because I need that. And usually it is just extra coverage. Don't be afraid also to get some B-roll, and B-roll is some cutaway shots, right? So shots of, nice shot of the sunset, or a nice shot of the trees blowing in the wind, or empty streets, or an empty playground, just things like that you may or may not need, but you may insert it in there to show a passage of time, or those types of things. Now, what you shoot on, of course, some people say, well, I don't have the right camera, I don't have the right equipment, I don't, what am I going to shoot on? The movie we're going to watch together here in a second, which is only 10 minutes long, I shot it in September of 2018 with my buddy Bruce. It was spur of the moment. We were sitting around on a Saturday trying to think of something to do, and there wasn't a movie that we wanted to go see, and I had my phone, and I had my Michael Myers shit in my car from something else, and I said, dude, why don't we just shoot like a little fan film? Do you want to just do that? And we came up with this idea. We wrote it down, and we're like, yeah, let's do this. Okay, we'll have this, that, and the other, and we'll do this, and we'll do that. And we shot it, and it turned out pretty good. It turned out actually not too bad, considering we shot it on my Galaxy S9 Plus, everything, and it was all done in a matter of, a few hours. Now, the post-production took about 2 days. So I took the footage home, and I did some posts. I did some color grade on it as well, right, to make it look a bit more film-like, if you will. Another thing too that you can do, some phones do this, but not every phone does this, If your phone allows you to shoot video in 24 frames per second, do that, okay? Because that will give you more of a film-like, I mean, film is actually 24 frames per second. I mean, that's how they shoot movies, right? And that will help. Don't shoot it at 60 frames. Don't shoot it at 29 frames or 30 frames, which is video, because you'll have a very video look to it. Shoot it at 24 frames per second. Or if you can't, try rendering it out at 24 frames per second and see what it looks like. If you shot it at 30 or 60, try rendering it out at 24 frames and see if it doesn't look too bad. But it's always best to have the raw footage in 24 frames per second. So that'll help too. That'll help too. And of course, lighting. I cannot help but emphasize how important lighting is, even natural light, right? Understand, where to place your lamp. Understand, if you're inside and you want more of that warm kind of tungsten feel, don't just turn on a lamp or an overhead lamp, right? And just start shooting. Craft your shots. How do you want the light to look? Can you move the lamp over here so it casts a nice light on this side of the face, but the actor maybe is a bit dark over here, right? Learn exposure on your camera as well, right? Don't just turn it on, point and shoot, right? Learn your camera, learn the settings of your camera, whether it's a phone or whether it's a DSLR. And just because you may not have, portable lights, right, that you've rented or that you can set up, doesn't mean that you can't craft something that doesn't look too bad. And you'll see in the video here, in the little movie that Bruce and I did, it looks pretty good. Now, to be fair, I did color grade it a bit, right? Color correct a little bit, but not a lot. I mean, you look at, because there wasn't a lot to do, because it's just the available lighting we have. And I don't want to crunch and color grade too much to make it look unrealistic. So that's another thing too. When you go to color grade your films, try not to color grade it to the point or color correct to the point where it looks like it's been color graded. It looks like it's been, you know what I mean? And usually people who don't have the experience of how to just complement something, just a bit of that's nice, just make it pop just a bit more, have a nice sort of, it's a little too, or it's a little too colorful. Maybe I'll mute the colors a bit, make them a bit more sort of, they're a bit saturated, maybe take, the saturation out a bit. If you don't have that level of experience, I see some people kind of go too far and they think it looks cool, but it looks like it's just the contrast been crunched and pumped up and just kind of looks silly to me. So nuance with your color correction. But you'll see, like if you're using available lighting inside, don't just turn on a lamp and shoot. Where do you want that lamp? How do you want your actor in the shot to look? Do you want to create a sense of mood, right? You know what I mean? Like, craft your shots. Think about what you're shooting. Think about the angles for which you're shooting. If you have a DSLR, I highly recommend getting an external microphone. If you don't have a boom mic, which I expect you wouldn't, then, and again, because we're talking about micro, like seat of the pants budget here, right? If you do have a DSLR, you could invest in a shotgun mic that can attach to your DSLR. It's not the best, but it's going to be light years ahead of using the external mic on the camera, or the internal mic on the camera, I should say. Like the microphone that's built into the camera, it's going to be light years ahead of that. Now, using your phone, again, it depends on how close you are to the subject. The microphone on the phone can work. Now, to be fair as well, Bruce and I use an external mic as well. So that's why the audio sounds as good, because I had that in my car, right? So we were able to attach an external mic and use that. But it's not something that costs a lot of money, right? So these are little things that you can kind of piece together to create micro-budgeted fan films that look all right. But the most important thing I cannot stress enough is lighting and crafting your shots. If you can master crafting your shots and shooting scenes from several different angles, but don't just learn where are you setting up your camera, understand the rule of thirds, right? Understand where you're putting the head of the individual in your frame, understand negative space. And I could go on and on here about all those things, but that might take a bit too much time because I want to watch the film here with you guys. But you can learn that, like just Google, the rule of thirds, negative space, and you'll be able to understand they'll walk you through. There's videos on all this too. Be able to walk you through sort of understanding where to place your subjects in shots, so you're not cutting off their head, or there's not too much headroom, not enough headroom. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things, and it may sound like, oh my God, that's a lot. But once you oh yeah, of course, and you get going, my God, is it going to elevate? I mean, even if you're just shooting on your little phone, with your buddies, it will elevate. I mean, again, it's not going to look like a Hollywood movie, but it's going to elevate what you could have done that much. I mean, to like tenfold, whoa, yeah, like this looks so much better. Like it looks like you understand how to shoot a movie, because you're crafting your shot and the way they look in the shot and the angles. You got like 5 different angles of this conversation, and you're cutting back and forth. It's so much more interesting to watch. That's really important. That and lighting is going to send you really, really sort of to the next level when you're doing really low budget micro Halloween fan films. Anyway, let's watch this Halloween fan film together, Haddonfield Reaper, and I will sort of walk you through some of the, it'll be like a director's commentary. And I will walk you through some of the things that Bruce and I did when it comes to this. I got to get it up on my screen here. There we go. I want to make sure I hit everything correctly at the same time. Do that. Okay. And yeah, this will be fun. Now remember, this is shot on the Galaxy S9 Plus. There's a little bit of color grading that's done. Okay. But not a lot. Not a lot. I maybe, darkened it just a smidgy, boosted the contrast a little bit, like tiny things like that. But anybody who's worked with editing, software knows, knows what it means to just kind of go, just a little bit and just a little bit. Okay, that's good. That's good, right? It really is just understanding the exposure on your camera, which the newer smartphones have now. Like they didn't used to have that. If you have an old phone, you couldn't adjust the exposure at all. You had a great megapixel count, but you couldn't necessarily adjust the exposure. That was really only reserved for the DSLRs. Well, there's a lot of smartphones now that you can adjust the exposure. It's insane. So pay close attention to that too. Anyway, let's do this. Okay. I'm going to hit, I want to make sure I get this right. Okay, so we're going to do this and then this. Okay, here we go. All right. Okay, so this is the first shot of the movie, of course. You guys can hear that, I'm assuming. Can you hear me okay? You guys can hear me okay, right? I'll get to your super chat soon, buddy. Don't worry. So, again, this is, natural light. You just want to have some fun. Now, this piece of music you hear, you probably recognize from the intro to my live streams. Well, this was the first spot where I ever used it, was in this movie. And I loved it. I just thought it was fun. This is a very sort of unorthodox Halloween fan film, but it was a lot of fun to shoot. Again, this is shot there. Of course, my buddy Bruce, this is shot on the Galaxy S9 Plus. The phone is attached to a gimbal. So if you can get your hands on a gimbal, you can get some really nice sort of steady cam type shots, which of course, again, will also help to improve your production value. But you got to understand how to move with the gimbal. You have to understand, you can't just, move all over the place with it, because obviously it will show that, you'll start seeing this. But practice as well. If you get a gimbal, go out and shoot a ton of stuff. Practice how to use the gimbal, how to, move the gimbal with the phone attached to it and things like that. And that'll really help once you get to the point where you are ready to actually shoot your micro-budgeted Halloween fan film. But as you can see here, now here's example. Bruce hits the elevator, we cut behind him, right? We didn't stay with him. We cut for a more interesting shot. And then we cut again to the side. The door opens. We didn't have to do that. We could have stayed with him right there on the side, but that's boring. So we cut to the back to show, the kind of the scope of the shot, and then we cut inside. Now this shot, as we enter the elevator, this is all one shot. You'll notice this. This is all one shot. We haven't cut. We go into the elevator with Bruce, and we follow him all the way up to the 18th floor of this person's apartment, and then we walk all the way down to the door, and it's all one shot. And we wanted to do that to see if we can do it in one shot, which we did. Of course, it took probably about 10 takes to do, but nonetheless, it was kind of fun. And then I thought it was a nice touch adding the phone text conversation to the left of Bruce. But of course, we knew that going in, that's where we were going to do that. We didn't think of that You know, so that's why we framed the shot like this with Bruce on the right, and so we could add that text on the left. We knew that going into this, we wanted to do that. So, because we'd thought about that earlier. Again, all one shot. And, yeah, this was a lot of fun to shoot. I just bring it back some memories. And creepy stuff. It's a creepy hallway, walking down to the end. And then the shot finally breaks, of course, when Bruce gets to the door here. And then there's our first cut. Opens up, comes down. Phone's on a gimbal, so what do? We come down with him. That's kind of interesting. And then we cut to Michael Myers' feet. So there's poetry there, right? We cut down to Bruce taking off his shoes, and the very next shot is the elevator door opening of Michael's boots or shoes coming out of the elevator, right? It's synchronicity there. It's a nice little sort of thing. Again, thinking about those shots. This was, again, crafting the shot from the back here, right? When you're shooting, you don't have a budget, you want to make it as visually interesting as you possibly can. The music, of course, is Halloween music, just horror music I had on file. Again, the knife, cutting over the shoulder. There's Michael getting that lower sort of power shot, you know? Kind of get that low shot of him in the authoritative position. Now again, this is all available lighting, right? Bruce sits down, the phone's on the gimbal, turns it up like this. We move over to the right to get the door behind him in the shot, to give the audience sort of a sense of, oh, something's going to happen there. But if you think, I mean,
Hey man, what's up?
Hey,
how you doing? What's going on?
Not much, to be honest with you. Today was my day off, so I'm just chilling. Did you have today off?
Nah, man. You know what? I just got home actually a couple minutes
funny.
ago. Yeah.
I just remember this.
Now,
again, I mean, to be fair, in
I'm
post,
excited to see
that's
you
my
guys, for sure.
voice you hear
Yeah.
as he's talking
and,
on Skype.
Jeff said that he's
that was
gonna be
added
able to
during
pick you
post,
guys up.
right?
Like, he needs to know what time. Like, when you guys think you'll be ready?
Okay,
But
cool. Hey, Jeff,
this is a great shot. I love this, right? Kind of cool through the peephole, right? You know, it was an interesting sort of, we were like, can we get that? And Bruce was like, I don't know, let's try. And we did. And then we cut back to Michael at the end of the hall. But you notice when we're on Bruce and he's talking, not now,
but he wants to know
before, we were moving
when
the
you guys
camera.
gonna be
We were
ready.
never still.
Like, you guys need
Now
like
we're
an
still
hour,
obviously
30
to
minutes,
focus
like, what's
on
it gonna be?
Michael in the
Behind you.
background.
What?
Is that Mark? Because if Mark's gonna be there, I'm not fucking showing up. Can't fucking stand that guy. Fuck, he pisses me off. He made a pass at Linda the last time we got together.
Dude, fuck off. I know it's Halloween and shit, but no. There's nobody
I love
here.
this. This is great.
Wait,
This is
shh.
great. Now, again, what you're going to see here is we put the phone back on the gimbal. We follow Bruce, or his name's not Bruce, obviously, in the story. I don't think, anyway. Followed around, moving into the apartment or round into the room, checking things out. This is okay. Like, this is fine, you know. And his performance is good enough that it's interesting to watch. Now we go here, we turn it on, cut to the other side, show his expression. Then we cut back as he begins to enter. We cut back behind, we cut to the front. We cut to what he sees, then we cut inside with his hand, and then we cut to this. So there's like 4 or 5 shots right there that make it much more interesting to watch and more professional. A professional feel to it. I mean, nobody's going to look at this and think we shot it for, $9 million, but there's a professional feel to it. This is a stock image of the moon. Don't be afraid to do that. Maybe get a stock image. Maybe you don't have the lens to show. I had this hanging around, so we showed it, Again, we're not just showing Bruce on the couch. We're kind of moving as if we're on like a dolly track. We're clearly not on a dolly track, but that was the idea. Just kind of a little bit of movement to make it interesting. Added the Friday the 13th Part 4 dance in there because we thought that would be fun. Again, following Bruce as he's coming towards the camera. Now he's walking away from the camera, right? Don't be afraid to do that kind of thing. It makes it more visually interesting to watch. Be steady with your hand. Just craft those shots. Craft those shots. Think about what you're shooting. Oh, there he goes. Down he goes. Oh, he's coming towards the cameras. Kind of a cool little shot. Oh, Michael coming out of the room there. Great. If the quality's a little weird, I apologize. It's, oh, and he was just dreaming. He was just dreaming. I know, everybody was like, oh, Dave, that's... Well, this isn't supposed to be canon. This was something for fun, guys. Oh, it would never happen. That would never happen. Well, yeah, we're just making something for fun. Anyway, so he was just dreaming. Was he just dreaming? I don't know. Was there something there? I don't know. And here's something good, too. Instead of getting the shot of Bruce looking at himself in the mirror, we wanted to do something a little more creative, right? Thinking about your shots, we become the mirror. We become the mirror. So the camera lens becomes the mirror, right? And he's looking into us. You see that in films? Think about that, right? Those are little things you can think of that are a bit different than what you normally see, but create something really
Hey guys, what's up? Yeah, come on in. Make yourself at home. I'll be right with you.
That's just me adding all that afterwards, of course, in post.
Guys, you would not believe I had the craziest dream.
Oh, it really was somebody in there. Which is kind of cool because when he was going to open the curtain, right? He was about to open the curtain. He didn't, right? Because his buddy was like, dude, like, what are you doing? It was really me. Dude, what are you doing, right? And he didn't. And that makes you kind of think, well, had he actually gone like this, he probably would have been attacked earlier. Because the idea is that Michael actually was in there the entire time, right? And the dream he had was foreshadowing, like it was a warning. You know what I mean? It's all fun and games. But that was shot, that's small. It's only about 10 minutes long. It was shot no budget. I mean, I just had everything in my car and my phone. And that's what we did. It was easy to shoot, not a lot to it. But you can see, hopefully you can see that what makes it a little more interesting. Wait a sec here. I'm hearing something here. There we go. What makes it a little more interesting to watch is because we crafted the shots, and I think that improves the production value of any low budget micro Halloween fan film. So it's really important. Again, we have 136 people watching. I don't know who's tuned in later, but let me to recap before we move over to the Q&A. Again, write out what you want to do. First, know that if you want to have your little fan film be as I hate using it, but as professional as possible, it's got to be shorter. So have something 10 minutes long, 15 minutes long. That's the mindset going in. If you get a little overzealous and you have all these crazy ideas that you want to do, break it up. Break it up into different parts. Okay, so there's room to breathe, room to maybe, spend a little extra money here or there. Don't try to put it all together in one shot. So shorter, write it down, right? Maybe do a couple of drafts. I'll keep it to just a couple of characters. Try not to do an ensemble because it's most likely you'll be using your friends, and not every one of your friends is probably great at acting. So you want to sort of just kind of narrow that down. Pick a couple of friends. Have it a couple of people in your little fan film. And then understand, do your best to learn and think about the shots you want to do. Think about crafting those shots, crafting the lighting. And again, if you're just using available lighting, that's great, but where are you going to put the lamp? Just because the lamp is over in the corner by the couch at the moment doesn't mean that's the best spot for it when you are shooting your film. It doesn't have to stay there, folks. It doesn't have to stay there. Move the lamp somewhere else. You know what I mean? Really think about the lighting you want, and I can't stress this enough. Shoot your scenes from different angles. Don't just set up a tripod and say action, and then you just have this 5-minute dialogue piece of these two guys, at a kitchen table. Shoot the scene from many different angles and with close-ups, and have a reason for them to be sitting there. The conversation in and of itself, you could look at, well, that's the reason. No, but make it more interesting. You know, he's invited over for breakfast and they sit down to have some cereal and you got some cool shots of them eating, you know, and looking up at the camera, and then maybe he throws the thing down, he pushes the bowl away and he starts talking to the guy. Things that makes it more interesting, right? You know what I mean? Rather than just sitting at the table, you know, have them eating, have them drinking. And I don't mean just drinking on the couch. Hey, Bob, nice day today. And I don't mean that. Just have it more, more of a purpose, a believable purpose, right? You know, the Friday night guys hanging out, having beer thing's been done 1,000 times, you know, think about it a bit more. So, and understand your camera, shoot at 24 frames per second, understand your camera, understand the exposure and the settings. You got to understand your camera, and think about maybe purchasing a gimbal as well, a phone gimbal. They're relatively inexpensive. There's different tiers, of course, but that will help you get that steady cam sort of feel too, to make some interesting shots, right? But when you get the gimbal, if you've never used one, go out and practice, shoot a ton of B-roll, shoot a ton of stuff, practice so you learn, because it's not easy. The first time I got it, I was like, oh, this is kind of tricky. You know what I mean? But some of the shots you see in Haddonfield Reaper look nice because, you know, I went out and practiced, and it gave a level of, again, no one's going to think this movie is a $10,000 film, but it gave a level of production value to Haddonfield Reaper that it wouldn't ordinarily have if we didn't implement the things that I'm talking about here, right? I mean, imagine Bruce walking along the street at the beginning from one angle. Or it's just me, you know, following him and we never cut, you know, or it's just a pan, you know, it's just a pan, right? We see him walking along the street and it's just a pan, you know. There's nothing wrong with having a shot where maybe you're panning, but don't let that be the shot, you know. Go in for a close-up, you know, shoot it from different angles. Get creative, right? Experiment, and then put it together and see what you come up with. So anyway, hopefully that helps to those who have been asking me about this for a long time. Nobody is expecting when you go out and shoot a micro budgeted Halloween fan film that it's supposed to look like, you know, Halloween 2018. But there are little things you can do when you understand the filmmaking process, you know, in terms of the production process. There's little things you can do to improve your film that you're going to think when you're watching it, you know, in the editing room, you'll look at and go, "Whoa, damn, this is looking pretty good. It's kind of fun. You know, got all these angles and got this nice shot coming along here like this." And it'll really help. It'll really help. But keep it short. Keep it short, because like I said, I mean, the longer you go on, the more of an opportunity there is for people to notice the flaws. Now, again, we're going to move to the chat room here. I was talking about micro-budgeted fan films. If you have something that you're going to shoot for 10 or 15,000, I mean, that is technically micro-budgeted, you know, relative to, I mean, Dylan's New Nightmare is micro-budgeted relative to something that's going to cost 40 million, right? But we're talking about in the world of fan films, you know, micro-budget is like, you know, $20 in your pocket or $100 or $200 or something like that, or just, you know, what you have at your disposal. Something like a Dylan's New Nightmare or an It's Me Billy or a Never Hike on the Snow or something, those would be considered, you know, high budgets for fan films. So just so we're clear, I'm talking about the micro budgeted backyard kind of, hey, let's make a fan film, be cool. There's little things you can do that can really improve and really kind of, you know, people watch your movie and you're like, well, this is kind of impressive, guys. Look at that shot you've got. Jesus, it looks like you're on look at that. Nice. Oh, look at that. You're coming back. You know, you're moving backwards and she's walking towards you. Woo, guys, I'm impressed. It'll really help. But you got to think about that. Don't rush it. You got to think about those shots. You got to think about your scenes. How are we shooting this? What are we doing here? What's our lighting? Where's our lighting source? You know, do we need to move the lamp? It's always there. Well, move it. Move it over there. It gets you better light. You know, think about that kind of stuff. Think about it. Anyways, okay, let's move over to the chat room now and see what you guys are talking about. If you have any questions about that, of course, feel free to ask me. I would be more than happy to answer as best as I can, because obviously now It's Me Billy will be the first, you know, professional independent production that I've done. The Halloween fan films are sort of in the micro budget area that I've done. Halloween the Night He Came Back was a bit higher. It had a budget of about $5,000. But certainly, I'm talking to those who just want to shoot on their phones or, their DSLRs and just go out and have some fun, right? You know what I mean? So hopefully that helps, but feel free to ask any questions you may have and let me know. Let's see if there's any super chats I missed. Intel Wild says, hey Dave, what's up with Tony and the guy in the chat room last night? I didn't listen live, but listened later and Tony was getting mad. Oh, just stuff that's water under the bridge right now. Stuff that's water under the bridge. Just somebody was insisting there was a date that was on the title card that wasn't. Tony was right. There was not a date, but it was just a back and forth that was sort of, there. So I would just say it's water under the bridge. I'd like to move on and hopefully cooler heads prevail from that. But it's all I think there's people chatting about it in the comments section of last night's Two Dudes, so feel free to go and check that out. Billy Van sends in a super chat and says, Dave, I'm interested in becoming a professional filmmaker one day. In your opinion, is it smarter to start on an independent level or a micro budget? Well, all independent means really at the end of the day, I mean, there's different levels of independent, but when you're an independent filmmaker, that essentially means you're working outside of the studio system. So an independent film is any movie that is created. I mean, again, this is Cliff Notes version, is any movie that is created and distributed not via the studio system. So not your Paramount, your Universal, your Warner Brothers, your Fox, which of course now is owned by Disney and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of independent production companies and studios. So, so that's what that means per se. But there's different levels of independent filmmakers, right? I mean, even a micro budgeted filmmaker is independent, I guess, for all intents and purposes, but certainly you wouldn't be sort of seen that way. The most important thing, if you want to be a filmmaker, I'm not that old, okay? I'll be 41 on May 24th. So I'm not ancient, but I'm old enough to remember a time, as a lot of us are, to remember a time when I would kill to have what you guys have now as a teenager. I mean, this is what we shot Haddonfield Reaper on, right? My Galaxy Samsung S9 Plus. This didn't exist 25 years ago. Bruce and I were shooting on high 8mm video cameras, VHS camcorders, and we were editing VCR to VCR. That's just what you did. We couldn't digitally edit. Now you can shoot a whole fucking movie on your phone. It's insane. So I know it's easier said than done because you want your movie to look like, a real movie. Well, hopefully this video has given you some tips and tricks to be able to kind of get it kind of like that. You know what I mean? At least a distant cousin of that or something. But at the end of the day, just go out and shoot, man. Go out and shoot. Write something down. Write a little idea, a story, write it down. Tweak it, polish it. It doesn't have to be long. Be 5 minutes. Be 5 minutes. Be 5 minutes. And go out and shoot. Go out and shoot something. But again, I cannot stress how important it is. Craft your shots. Know what you're shooting. Shoot it from different angles. It's going to improve your little amateur movie. Huge. 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 And when I say craft your shots, I don't just mean angles, right? You also have to understand, like if somebody's having a conversation at a table, right? Think about where are they in the frame? Is there something nice behind them that's visually aesthetically appealing, like a picture or something? Maybe they're on this side of the frame and there's something over here, right? And there's something, and maybe what's in the background is sort of blurred out. So they're out of focus, or, what's in the background is out of focus, but they're in focus. Play around with focus, play around with rack focusing, right? Things like that. I mean, it's just go out and shoot, have some fun and shoot, get your feet wet. Every filmmaker starts making amateur movies. Low budget, nothing with their friends. Everybody does it. Everybody does it. You have to. If you're a filmmaker, you do. It's just what you do because it's in your blood. You don't care. You just want to go out and make a movie. So you go out and make a movie. You know what I mean? And now, I mean, listen, 30 years ago, it was an issue. We had to borrow our dad's big hunkin' VHS recorder and I couldn't, but now everybody's got a camera and it's amazing what you can do. And gimbals, my God, you can get a little gimbal that creates like a steady cam feel. My God, where the hell was this 30 years ago? I would have given anything to have that. You know what I mean? No, we're hunking around with a big, boom box on our shoulder going, okay, go ahead, guys. It was insane. It was insane. So I will say that just go out and shoot. Go out and shoot. That's where you start. But think about a lot of the things I've said here today and try to implement them and think about them when you're making your micro-budgeted fan film. Frank Reich, Frank, my man, Frank, we've been wondering where you've been. We sent you Frank, if it's personal, you absolutely don't have to say anything. You do not have to say anything. We just have noticed your absence over the last week or so. Maybe you were on vacation. You don't owe us anything. It's not like, just want to let you know you were missed. It's nice to see you back. We had tried reaching out to you. We're glad you're okay. Glad to see that you're okay here, Frank. And thank you for the very generous super chat. Frank says, Dave was captive in Blum's sex dungeon and saw the kills flashback. So Myers had a flat in H78, called for a tow from Phelps, overworked and underpaid. The mechanic killed Myers and left him in the field. The mechanic is the boogeyman. Frank, I have missed your wit and your humor, and that is funny. I think I even said that on the show last week. I said something to the effect of, I think Frank might have been, I think I said maybe you were with Jason Blum on some excursion in the Congo. I think that's what I said. I think that's what I said. That's what I said. And thank you so much. Great to see you here, Frank. Great to see you here. Great. Sorry, guys, I'm back. Work's been ridiculous. Well, there you go. You see, work's been ridiculous, man. I said that too. I said, maybe it's work and he's, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's great. It's great that you're here. And you know what? Work comes first, of course. And we're just glad that you're okay because you've been very consistent and a great moderator and a great supporter of the channel. And we love you. And we're just glad that you're doing all right. Okay, let's see here. Alexander Dirksen says, I made maybe a 24 fan film over 10 years ago. Oh, a 24, right. A fan film over 20 years ago. It was over 20 minutes with interviews with the actors. Was fun as hell on set. I wrote everything down in a shot list. It was easy to shoot. We also had bloopers. You know what? Alexander brings up a good point. Again, I don't want to take the fun out of it, but, making movies isn't necessarily, look, it can be fun, but making movies is hard work too. And, having something like a shot list, which is just it's essentially when the script is done, you then go through the script scene by scene and sort of laying out the shots, how you want to shoot the movie, from what angle, like how are we going to shoot this scene? Okay, well, this scene's going to be 3 shots. We're going to have a master shot and 2 close-ups from either side of the table. Well, you write that down. And you might even, depending on how far along you are, depending on the level of production you're working at, you may even be working with the director of photography at that point. You probably are. And you may decide to talk about what, lenses to use and all that kind of stuff. So, that's a little far, that's kind of beyond where most micro-budgeted filmmakers are. But certainly a shot list is not a bad idea. Shot list just basically is you go through each scene and you lay out how you want to shoot this, right? Are these close-ups? Are these masters? Are we from here? Are we from there? And it really helps. We're doing it with It's Me, Billy. And that way, when you get to the set, right? When you get to the set, well, it could be your house if you're working on a micro budget, but when you get to shooting the movie, you're very prepared. You're not thinking on the day of, how am I going to shoot this? I don't know. Bob, why don't you just, I know. Why don't you just walk? Yeah. Walk over there. And no, that's not gonna, there really isn't any of that, right? Because you have a shot list, so you know what you're gonna do. Now, that doesn't mean that things don't change. That doesn't mean that spur of the moment, spontaneous things don't change. And as long as they don't, kind of toss up the entire foundation of the scene or the picture. And if you have time, if you have the money too, maybe you do shoot it from a different angle that you weren't planning on because something happens in the spur of the moment where you're like, oh, you know what? Let's do that. Let's shoot that. If there's time, right? I mean, on a Hollywood production, it would all come down to time and money. There may not be the time or the money to start diddling around with, oh, that's a good, you know what? But that doesn't mean that that hasn't been done before. That's been done many times on a Hollywood set where something spontaneous would happen. Like, no, you know what? Let's do that. Shoot that as well, because they know they can. They have the time. They have, you know, a bit of the money that they can sort of take that extra, you know, hour or whatever, or half hour, however long it would take to shoot that scene that way, or to, you know, reset up. They can do that. Generally, they try to avoid that. But certainly on an independent film or a micro budgeted film, there might be more leeway for that. So don't be afraid to do that as well. But that's a very good point. Yeah, the shot list can really help you when you get to set. 100%. Could not agree more. Dusty Rose sends a super chat, says, Dave, have you seen H5 Director's audio commentary? No, I have not. I would love... Boy, would I love to see that. Oh man, that would be hilarious. Dalton B, it's a little ridiculous to get fussy over movies, in my opinion. It's a little ridiculous to get fussy over movies, in my opinion. Fussy in what way, Dalton? In what way, Dalton? Mason James says, back to work myself. Have a great day, everyone. Good to see you back, Frank. You too, Mason. Take care, buddy. Neil Rook says, hi, Dave. I feel that most people in North America think of Britain as just England, whereas Scotland and Wales are part of it too. Your thoughts? You know, I think that's probably true. I think that's probably true to a certain extent, because Britain or England is very much sort of it's because England and London especially, and of course, you know, you got the Queen and the whole monarchy there and all that. I mean, it's very much the central hub of Britain. You're right. I mean, Scotland is part of Britain and Wales. Now, is Ireland part of Britain, or is Ireland not part of Britain? I know. I think it's all the United Kingdom, right? But no, that doesn't. But you're right. But I think it's primarily because, in many ways, England, especially London, overshadows everybody else, right? You know, it would be like, you know, when people think of, well, not necessarily, but I know when a lot of people think of Canada, they think of Toronto, because Toronto is the fourth largest city in North America. I mean, it in many ways outshines everything else in Canada. Now, I'm not talking about, you know, Vancouver in terms of its scenery. I mean, Vancouver has the mountains and BC is one of the most beautiful places on earth, let alone Canada. But certainly Toronto is the Mecca. It's the New York of this country. So, you know, there's a lot of people that when they think of Canada, they think of Toronto, or they think of Canada, they think of Montreal, or they think of Canada, they think of Vancouver. They don't think of, you know, Ottawa, which is our nation's capital. They don't think of Edmonton or Calgary or Winnipeg or London, Ontario, or, you know, or Quebec City, or, you know, Newfoundland and Labrador. They don't think of that. They don't think of that at all. You know, but I think it's because Toronto is that epicenter, right? And I think. And of course, as well, in pop culture, you got to think about pop culture. In pop culture, in movies and stuff, whenever anybody goes to Britain, right, it's usually pop culture. It's usually England, right? It's London. It's the Queen. They're always making fun of the Queen, or the double-deckered buses, or, you know, the roundabouts, or the, you know, Buckingham Palace, Big Ben, London Bridge. I mean, very rarely, and I'm not saying there aren't, but very rarely is you know, Scotland used to the same degree. So I think you're right. I think there's probably some truth there. Let me see. Even the rest of England dislike London. It's the same here. Everybody hates. I mean, I don't hate Toronto, but everybody thinks, oh, Toronto, so this is the center of the universe. It's like, well, yeah, because it's a big bustling city. Every country has their, you know, New York, right? I mean, America's got New York, Canada's got Toronto, England's got London. You know, it's because it's the epicenter. It's the financial, it's the entertainment, financial, economic, which I guess is financial in ways, sports, you know, business capital of the respected countries. So, I mean, yeah, of course they're going to be big and noisy and bustling, and that's just the way it is. I don't hate Toronto. I love the energy of big cities. And I've never been to London, but I love the energy of New York, and I love the energy of Los Angeles. It's a different energy. Los Angeles, although is the second largest city in the States, is because it's in California and you got the beach there. It's a very much more it's more spread out and it's much more ho-hum. But I love, the vibe that's there. And I love the vibe in Toronto. It's like I've never been to Chicago, but Toronto is essentially the same size as Chicago. So I just love that kind of thing, Maybe I won't feel that way as I enter my 70s. I don't know, but fuck this, I'm out of here. But yeah, cool stuff. Intel Wild sends a super chat, says, just want to welcome back Mr. Frank Riker. Yes, welcome back, Mr. Frank Riker. Eddie Greens 101 sends a super chat and says, speaking of shots, the shot of the Creepers truck slowly approaching from behind in the opening minutes of Jeepers Creepers is gold. Controversy aside. I haven't seen Jeepers Creepers in a long time, but I think I know the shot you're talking about, Eddie. Thank you for the super chat, by the way. I'll have to go back and take a look at that. But you're right. You're right. I mean, it's that first movie, controversy with the director aside, who likes to diddle kids, and look, and I say this all the time. I know it's hard, but I say this all the time. You can be a real fucking piece of shit. You can be a real piece of shit. You can be a, abuser. You can be a sexual predator. You can be a real fucking piece of shit who is and I'm not saying the guy who directed Jeepers Creepers is this way. I'm just saying, but you can also be incredibly talented. Just because you are a fucking dirtball, scumbag, scuzz-sucking piece of shit doesn't mean that you're not incredibly talented. You can be fucking amazing at something. Amazing. It might be difficult for people to believe because they see you a certain way and they don't want to believe that level of talent, something so genuine and pure, could possibly be coming out of someone so vile and evil. Oh yeah, it happens all the time. It happens more than we know. There's probably a lot of people out there to this day that, oh yeah, 100%. Actors, actresses, singers, dancers, performers, sports figures. Oh yeah, 100%. Look at O.J. Simpson. I mean, they're not mutually exclusive to each other. So, yeah, I mean, you can diddle kids and make a fucking hell of a, I'm just saying you can be that kind of a guy and make a hell of a movie. I mean, look at Roman Polanski. I mean, incredibly talented. So, I mean, yeah, totally, man. Totally. I got to watch that again. Neil Rook follows up with Northern Ireland is part of the UK along with England, Scotland, and Wales. Ireland is separate. Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. So Northern Ireland is, but the other stuff is separate. All right. Good to know. Good to know. Good to know. Moshi says, hey, Dave, do you know the fan film Friday the 13th, Michael versus Jason? I think I do. Is that the one that's got like 10 million views or something like that? I think I've seen that. Yeah. Yeah, that was well put. That's an example of a fan film that was well put together. I do think the color grading they did in the movie, or the exposure during the daytime scenes, it's a little hot for me. A little hot, a little blown out. I don't know if that's because they didn't expose it correctly or if it's something they did in post-production to pump up the contrast and, during the color grade process or whatever they did with the footage in post-production. It looks fine. I mean, it's not like it looks awful, but I certainly can tell it's been processed. Like that's not the raw footage, shot on whatever they shot it on. So I don't know, whatever they did to it, I don't know I would have done that. I think what ends up happening, and I'm not saying that they did this, I'm not saying that, but I do find that I think what ends up happening with inexperienced people is they will not factor in exposing properly for the elements they're in. And then they get into post-production and they try to fix the exposure or try to mask, to create something out of information that doesn't exist. And if your movie is already overexposed, even just by a little bit, when you try to fix that or work with that information is not there because you didn't properly expose it when you were shooting it. So then you try to kind of crunch it a bit and boost the blacks or the contrast, or try to, and then it just ends up looking hot, little kind of, and again, I'm not saying that's what they did, but I do notice that the daylight scenes are a little hot to me. But maybe there might have been something that they were doing. I don't know. I'm not too sure. But yes, I did see it, and I thought it was well put together. It was all right. It was all right. Let me see here. Dirt Todsking saying IMDb says Paranormal Activity had a budget of approximately $15,000 US. Yeah, they probably did. I wonder what they shot it on. What was the first Paranormal Activity shot on? Let's see here. I could ask Google. I don't know if she'd know that. What was the first Paranormal Activity shot on? Of course, probably not going to get this. Yeah, it's a little too obscure. I just want to know what camera they used. No idea. Have to find out. But no, you're right. Yeah, no, you can. Now, there's not a lot to Paranormal Activity, right? We have to remember that. It's very sort of, it's all, it's that found footage type of thing. Those are relatively inexpensive to do. And the only, real money would come by either, the actors that are involved or any post-production visual effects that you would have to do. But the actual shooting of the movie itself is relatively simple, and inexpensive. So yeah, no, that doesn't surprise me at all. And of course it did very well. I mean, geez. Super chat from, a couple of them came in here. Toronto Freddy says, I have actually had a hand in constructing the skyscrapers in this city. Very cool. I remember you saying a while back that you have a big interest in it. I do, Aaron. Yeah, I just have a fascination with watching, I have this fascination with city skylines. And not every city skyline, but usually when we're watching a movie, if there's a, drone shot or aerial shot of a city skyline, I would say maybe 7-8 times out of 10, I know what city it is. Even if it doesn't say the name on the screen, because I can identify certain buildings that I'm familiar with. And the Toronto, being a Torontonian from Toronto, obviously I have a natural interest in seeing Toronto grow and seeing sort of where, Toronto is growing you'll know this. this. There are skyscrapers that have been approved for Toronto that are either under construction or yet to start, that are just continuing to change the skyline of Toronto. It's unbelievable. There's, the one at the corner of Yonge and Bloor, which I'm sure that's going to be Toronto's first super tall. Now, there's the CN Tower, okay? The CN Tower is 1,815 feet tall. So it's the tallest structure in the Western Hemisphere. Former tallest building, if you will, in the world, as recognized by the Guinness Book of World Records, until the Burj Khalifa, that building in Dubai that Tom Cruise was hanging off of in Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, that building. That was the building that eclipsed the CN Tower here in Toronto in 2007. Now, since then, there have been other towers around, I think 5 or 6 of them, that have just eclipsed the CN Tower. But the CN Tower is huge. It used to house the tallest man-made observation deck in the world at 447 meters. And it's the CN Tower has there's the shaft of the CN Tower and then the big round circle, which is the main observation deck. But if you go up higher, there's a little tiny observation deck, and that's called the Sky Pod, I think, or the space deck or whatever. It used to be called the space deck years ago. And that is 447 meters above the ground. And up until just, like I said, maybe 10 years or so ago, it was the tallest man-made observation deck in the world. Really cool stuff. Not a lot of people know about that. And it's unfortunate because the CN Tower held the record for 31 years. And a lot of people are like, really? That was the CN Tower? CN Tower's marketing, I don't think, was very good outside of Canada, which is unfortunate, because it's iconic. It's considered one of the 7 wonders of the modern civil engineering world, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the CN Tower. beautiful views of the city. So anyway, my point is that is huge. I mean, like I said, it's nearly 2,000 feet tall, but it's not a building per se, right? So there's a building in Toronto that's being built right now called the One, which will be Toronto's first super tall. And a super tall is any building over 300 meters. So that's really cool. And then there's a couple others that are on that are going to be super talls that are on the just approved or on the cusp of being approved block. You know what I mean? It's like, fuck, man. And Toronto already looks impressive from the water, but I mean, and from certain shots around the city, I mean, in another 5 to 7 years, oh my God, it's going to be amazing. It already is amazing, but it's going to be even more. It's going to be even more that futuristic kind of thing. I mean, not quite Dubai, but I think you know what I'm talking about. So yes, Aaron, yes, I do have a fascination. That's really cool. What buildings did you have a hand in building? No pun intended. I would like to know. That's really cool. Let's see here. Frank Riker sends in a super chat and says, one of the best shots in history was in Jaws with Brody chumming and seeing the shark. Also love rack focus shots during intense moments. Dude, I could not agree with you more. Why don't you come down here and chum some of this shit? And then the shark comes out of oh, it's great. Because that's the first time that we actually see the shark close up like that in all its glory. I mean, we see it underwater, right? We do see it a little bit with that fucking frightening death in the pond when he's like, hey, what are you doing? You guys okay over there? And the shark comes up and we see it on its side. Oh, that's deadly shit, man. Seeing that on its side, love that stuff. That's awesome. But it's still underwater. The water's a bit murky. We can kind of make it out, but it's like, whoa. But when he comes up out of the water, just before Brody says the famous, I think you're going to need a bigger boat. That's the first time, I believe, in that movie that we really get a good look at its face, a really good look at its face. And it was that moment where it's like, that is a big fucking shark. That is ridiculous. You know what I mean? And I love when he walks back and his cigarette's just hanging by. I think, does he have a cigarette on his, I think he's got a cigarette in his mouth. I can't remember now, but he just looks, he's like, you're going to need a bigger boat. It's just so great. It's such a great line. I love it. Dude, I am right there with you, man. Right there with you. Chris Baber sends in a super chat. Talking to Frank says, rack shots and Jaws are put up. Oh my goodness. Chris deserves this. There you go, buddy. Douglas Taylor says, you do a super job on these videos and please keep up the great work. I enjoy them. Well, thank you so much, Douglas. Really appreciate it, man. Thank you. Johnny T says, I recently heard Michael Myers took not 6, but 7 shots in the 81 opening, and there was a rogue fan in the shrub scene. Went back, and they're right. Would be cool if you made a vid of favorite movie errors. Favorite movie errors. You know what? That's actually not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea, Johnny T. That's not a bad idea. But you're right. Yes, you're right about the shots. You're right about the fan. When they're walking along the sidewalk, you can see casual observers on the deck wondering what's going on. That goes to show you how independent of a production it was. Now, it wasn't guerrilla filmmaking, but it was, probably your next closest thing to guerrilla filmmaking without it being actually guerrilla filmmaking. And what do I mean by guerrilla filmmaking? I just mean you don't bother getting permission from anywhere to shoot. You just go out and shoot and hope that nobody sees you. And if you were doing that, the likelihood of somebody in the background going, what the fuck is going on over there? Is very likely, right? It wasn't quite that. I mean, they did have permission to shoot in the areas they were, but it was just that you're absolutely right. 100% correct. Yeah, that's right. My biggest perplexing, one of them, I guess, in the first 2 Halloween films is in the end credits of the original Halloween, Michael Myers is said to be age 23. Well, that's a mistake because he was 6 in 1963. 15 years later would put him at 21. We know he's 21 because even in Halloween 2, Dr. Loomis says Michael Myers is 21. Okay, so it's a mistake. The end credits say Michael Myers, age 23. Okay, mistake. Not a big deal. Whatever, right? At the end of Halloween 2 from 1981, now there's 3 years between these two movies. At the end of Halloween 2 from 1981, it says Michael Myers, age 23. Again! They didn't bother to check that? I mean, okay, so you make the mistake in the first one. You make it again in the second one? Always bothered me. Always bothered me. Let's see here. Okay, yeah, Rikia? Hopefully I'm getting that right again. Rikia. Fleming says, and thank you for the super chat, by the way. Really appreciate it. Says, hey, Dave, do you know any scary movies where the sequels were actually good? Well, I mean, I think that's a matter of subjectivity, really. I quite enjoy A Nightmare on Elm Street 2. I quite enjoy Friday the 13th Part 2. I quite enjoy Halloween Part 2. I mean, those are three examples there. I mean, I understand. I think the one that people would point to the most as being a little would probably be A Nightmare on Elm Street 2. And I do understand the reasons why people have issues with that. But I think Friday 2 and Halloween 2 were acceptable sequels. I think Jaws 2 is an acceptable sequel. It is nowhere near the genius of the first movie. But as far as doing a sequel at that time to one of the greatest movies ever made, to one of the highest grossing movies in motion picture history, it was eclipsed by Star Wars 2 years later. But at that time, making a sequel to a giant like Jaws was unprecedented. And how do you follow up? You're never going to be as good as Jaws. I think Jaws 2 is probably as good as it possibly could have been. And I think it's actually a pretty decent sequel, all things considered. All things considered. And then there's a gigantic nosedive between 2 and 3, and an even more of a gigantic nosedive between 3 and 4. But yeah, I think those are some examples. The Exorcist 3, not The Exorcist 2, but The Exorcist 3 is actually quite a popular, well-liked sequel. Yeah, I think they are out there. I mean, again, it's a matter of subjectivity, of course, but I think there are examples of sequels that do exist where there is a general consensus from most of the movie-going audience that this is a good movie. That's a good sequel. That doesn't mean you're not going to find somebody that doesn't like it. Obviously you will, but generally speaking, I think there are a few films out there in the horror genre that you can point to the sequels to, or a sequel to, or a direct sequel to, and say, you know what, that's actually pretty good. And most people would agree with you. So they're definitely out there. Toronto Freddy says, you did the Aurora Tower at Yonge and College, the tallest condo in North America. Yes, that's right. Is it still the tallest condo in North America? Because I do know that it might have been at the time. I do know New York has got two real big, thin, tall ones going up right now that are gigantic, right close to Central Park, and I think they're condo towers as well. And I think they're taller than the Aurora. But you're right. At the time, it was definitely the tallest in the city. North America, yeah, it might have been at that time because that was what 2010, 11, something like that, somewhere around there, I think. That's really cool, man. Yeah, I always think the Aurora Tower, as you're coming into the city from the west on a given day with the sun the right point, it almost looks like it's got that dip in the center, but from a certain point of view, it almost looks like Kubrick's Monolith from 2001. It's really cool. And then, of course, at nighttime when it's lit up, it looks really awesome, too. Nick Town says, Dave, I watched a fair amount of subtitle films from China, Japan, other countries, and noticed how America has gotten inspiration from them. One comes to mind, John Woo, A Better Tomorrow. Oh yeah, there's a lot of films that Hollywood remakes that are inspired from Japanese, Chinese, and foreign films because their stories are often fantastic, and studios see the potential in a story that if translated for an English audience, and hopefully if done well, would be really good and hopefully make them a lot of money. So there's a lot of great stories around the world that are incredible. I mean, look at Parasite, for example, right? Won the Academy Award for Best Director and Best Picture. I thought it was fan-fucking-tastic. Now, I used to, for years, not like subtitled films. And the reason for that was because I'm not a big reader anyway. I mean, obviously I can read. Ironically, I read for a living, doing voiceovers. That's not really reading, but I think you know what I'm saying. So obviously I can read, but I don't read fiction. I'm not a big novelist. I don't like reading books. If I was going to read, which is ironic because I'm a movie guy, but I like reading like true stuff, like biographies or, things like that. But so I think for a long time growing up, I was never really, the idea of reading while watching a movie seemed counterintuitive to me, and I didn't like it. However, as I've gotten older and as I've watched more and more subtitled films, I've actually really enjoyed it. And I find that there's a rhythm. I think I can't say I've really enjoyed it, but I'd say, so I back that a bit, but I'll say that I have found the groove. I have found the rhythm in order to be able to read and watch. And it usually takes me about 5-10 minutes to find that rhythm, because it all depends on how long the subtitles are on the screen, because you are reading and watching. And depending on how in-depth it is, it can be problematic. Now, there's a television show on Netflix called Dark, and I love that show. I've watched the first 2 seasons. I'm looking forward to the 3rd and final one, but it's a very cerebral, intense show. Okay, it's not a show that, it's very complicated. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of wheels that are turning, but it's really cool. It's right up my alley with time travel and fucking space-time continuum shit and theory of relativity and all that. It's just amazing shit. It's really, really, really cool. It's a German show, Netflix's first German show, I believe. Now, you can watch it with subtitles or you can watch it dubbed. Now, I actually chose to watch it dubbed because of the cerebral nature of the show. I found that when I started to watch it subtitled, I was losing interest because I was getting confused. I find it easy. Now, this is just me. I found it and find it easier to follow when it's just dubbed. Now, I know it's not the actual actors' voices. I understand that. I mean, I've done some dubbing myself, so I understand the process. And it might be weird for some to see a bit of a kung fu, movie happening. But for me, at least I understand what they're saying, and I totally get it. And it's much easier to follow for me. But I find that if I am going to watch a subtitled film, there's a groove, there's a dance that I have to, a rhythm that I have to get into. And once I do, I quite enjoy it if it's not too complicated. And something like Parasite is not really a cerebral, intense movie, right? With all these sort of layers and things happening. There's a couple of layers there because there's that surprise that happens kind of halfway through the movie. But yeah, so I watched that subtitled. I mean, I had to watch it, subtitled, and loved it. Thought it was great. So, and it's a great story. I hope Hollywood doesn't now make a American version of that movie. I don't think it's necessary. I think it's be kind of strange. Didn't we just have this movie win the Academy Award for? I don't know what's going on. Great movie. If you guys haven't seen Parasite, you got to see Parasite. It's a great movie. Love it. Let's see here. Scroll down. We're going on. Make sure I didn't miss any super chats. Okay. Billy Van has got one coming in. Billy Van says, Dave, by the way, did you happen to get my Patreon message? Let me see. I got a couple of messages there. Let me see. I got, who sent me the most recent one? There was one from Andrew Logan Atkins. I got that. Billy. Oh, this is 3 days ago. I did not see this. Why didn't I see this? That's my apologies, Billy. I will respond to it later this afternoon, okay? And I will let you know. I didn't see this. Strange. I'll let you know, buddy. Thank you for reminding, because I may not have even seen that. I don't know why I didn't get a notification for that. Who knows? But thank you for bringing that to my attention, because obviously that kind of sounds interesting. So I will, I'll do my best to respond to you this afternoon. Okay, I will respond to you, buddy. I absolutely will. Let's see here. Jurassic Production says, Dave McRae, sorry for getting here so late. That's okay. That's all right. You're not. It's not like that's it. I'm deducting pay, you son of a bitch. Anyway, but I see I'm already taking pointers from you. Camera lenses becomes the mirror, and this definitely helps. I hope my project ends up great when the virus ends. I hope so too, man. I hope so too. Yeah, I'm glad you like that little thing. See, that was something that, we often, and there's nothing wrong with this, right? There's nothing wrong with having an over-the-shoulder shot. The camera's off to the side, so you don't get the reflection of the camera in the mirror, and you're kind of off to the side. You're shooting kind of, over the shoulder of your actor into the mirror, and they look up, and we see their face. It's great, and I'm not suggesting you don't do that, but we decided to do it a bit of a different way. So how the camera kind of becomes the mirror in a lot of ways, and it just makes it interesting. Again, it's when you're working on a micro budget. The most important thing is once you have your, it's laid out and you're going to shoot, just learn to craft your shots. Take your time. You know what I mean? And always have your actors doing something. They're never just sitting there talking. If they're sitting there talking, like I said, it's because they're having a drink at a restaurant, or it's because there's something natural that's going on that is the catalyst that helps driving the conversation forward. It's much more interesting. Now, that doesn't mean that you cannot have scenes where there isn't, two people sitting there talking, but usually that might be also because there's a certain emotion a person is feeling. So maybe you stumble upon somebody upset in their bedroom and they're just sitting on their bed. So the person goes over, sits, next to them, and there's a conversation that's happening there, right? And you could say, well, there's nothing going on. Yes, but that usually could also be because the other person that's there on the bed, there's a certain emotion the person's feeling. They're very sad or upset. And now there's this great sort of dramatic moment between these two people having a conversation. But don't just shoot the conversation on the, with the two people on the bed as a master shot with two people on the bed. Shoot the conversation with them on the bed, then shoot the conversation again and go over here and get maybe the side of one person in the shot and the other person over here talking to them. Shoot the conversation like that. Then reverse it. Go over here, get a bit of this person, and shoot the person who's upset and sad, and shoot it like that. Then you got 3 different angles that you can play with in post, and it really helps. If you're shooting on your phone, it's not going to make your movie look like $1 million, but it's going to surprise. It's going to make it much more interesting. It's going to show that you've taken your time and care into piecing something like this together, and it makes it much more interesting to watch. And that's what you want. You want people to watch your movie. You want it to look as much like a real movie as you possibly can, right? And those are just little things that you can do instantly to help improve that. So I'm glad you like that idea. Rakia Fleming sends another super chat. Thank you so much, Dave. Says, Dave, by the way, Dave, happy birthday. By the way, Dave, my birthday, was May 8th. Finally legal. Woo! May the 8th. You are a Taurus. Yeah, my birthday is coming up on the 24th. And then Tony Michael's birthday is the 29th. A lot of May birthdays. Crazy stuff. Kevin Bacon's Boner says, to your top 5 cliches, 1, you didn't mention that is my number 1. 1, you didn't mention that is my number 1 is definitely the medicine cabinet, mirror cabinet is closed. No one's there. Open, closes, boo. I think I know what you're talking about. So you mean like... Oh, I get what you're saying. Yes, I get what you're saying. So there's a medicine cabinet. There's nobody behind them. They open it up, grab some pills or toothpaste or whatever, shuts it, and there's somebody behind them. Yeah. I've also seen examples of where they've alluded to that might be happening, and they don't. And that's been refreshing to see. Or how about one where somebody's at the fridge, they open the fridge, there's nobody here. They open the fridge, they grab something like a can of soda or something, and then they close it, and there's somebody there. We see that a lot too, right? We see that. And you know what? Here's the thing. If the rest of the movie is really good and really well done, having a cliche trope like that doesn't really bother me because the rest of the movie is so good. I think the fridge one is in What Lies Beneath, I think. But the rest of the movie is so good that I'm just like, whatever. It's like, okay, I saw it coming a mile away, but meh, whatever. I think it's in that movie anyway. It's in quite a few films, obviously. And the medicine cabinet one, you're right. There is quite a bit of that. Yep, couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Let me see here. Just go and make sure I'm not missing any. I don't think I did. I think I've done all right today with making sure I've got them. All right. Great to see Frank in here. Darren Sands is here, of course, as well. Great to see you guys here. We'll go for a little bit longer here on this Tuesday, May the 12th. The 12th, folks. Let me scroll down. Let me see. What do we got going on? Robert Thidoff says, Dave, do you believe the JFK assassination was a conspiracy? Yes. Yes, I do. I do not believe Oswald... I do not believe there was one shooter. No, not at all. It was 100%. Alex G says, Dave, have you noticed how the closet opens on its own in H1 revealing dead Linda? Yes, I do. Yes, I think, I've heard people say that maybe there was something set up and he was pulling the string from the other room or something. I don't know. Again, it's supposed to be it's a stage thing. It's supposed to be very kind of theatrical. I don't think we're supposed to think too much about it, to take it literally. It's more of a theatrical presentation. You know what I mean? But I guess if you want to go there, I mean, certainly that is true. That is very true. Darren Sand says Michael has some fishing wire. I think you're right. He was hooking it up. He bought it at the hardware store. That's what happened. He bought it at the hardware store, and he was just. That's how it went down, folks. That's how it went down. Rolly, or is it Raleigh? Rolly Mallow. Dave, first time watching your video live. What's up, man? What's up to you, my man? How you doing? Good to see you here. Great to have you. Come on down. Jim Dorsey says, Dave, the thing that freaks me out about outer space the most is thinking about how far does it go? Where is the end? If you just keep going and going, or if you just kept going and going, where would you go? Makes my head explode. Oh yeah, it's the concept of something infinite and something, the concept of infinity is mind-boggling, because there is a beginning, a middle, and an end to everything we have here on Earth. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end to our lives. There's a beginning and a middle and an end to this show today. There's a beginning and a middle and an end to this desk, to this computer, to this hat, to everything. And to think that something goes on forever is just strange. It's very hard to wrap your mind around. I couldn't agree more, and I love talking about that kind of stuff. It's so cool. Lauren Downing says, late to the game today, had a meeting. How's everyone doing today? We're doing well, Lauren. We're doing well. Won't be around too much longer, but it's great that you could have popped in. Great. Mark Striano says, Dave, I sent you a message in Facebook Messenger. Did receive it. I don't want to beat it to the ground. If you sent it to me on my personal Facebook account, I probably didn't get it. If you sent it to me to the Many Things Dave McRae account, then I'll take a look. I'll ask my assistant as well if she's seen it. I get a lot of messages. Still to this day, I get about, it has slowed down a little bit, but I would say I'm getting anywhere between 20, 25 maybe a day. And obviously I can't respond to everybody. And the shorter the message is, the more likely you'll get a response from me, because it's very difficult to, if there's this long sort of, message, it's very hard. I love people who are passionate enough and respect people who are passionate enough to write this really long thing, but I just don't have time to respond, to that. So, and not everybody is like that. Like I've said 1,000 times, some people are just like, hey man, love your work. Great stuff. See ya. But if you want to up your chances of me responding, make it short, sweet, to the point, and send it to my Many Things Dave McRae Facebook page, not my personal Facebook page, because my personal Facebook page is, I don't receive, if you send me a message, it'll probably go into another folder where I don't see it. And I don't usually check those because they're not usually from people who are my friends. If you are my friend, obviously I'll see it because it'll come into the regular folder. But so I like to keep my personal Facebook separate from my show Facebook, essentially. So let me know where you sent it. Now that I've been yapping, let me see here. Did Mark follow up? He hasn't followed up yet. Yes, send the message to my many things. Just on Facebook, just go to Many Things Dave McRae. Send a message there. Let me see. David King says, Dave, what is your opinion on the Cursed Films series on Shudder? Any episode you like in particular, or any episode that you're looking forward to? Well, David, I don't have Shudder, and so I have no idea what you were talking about. I'm not sure, so I can't say. And I know even if I did have Shudder, it wouldn't be guaranteed that I have the same thing, because of course, like Netflix's filmography, or its I guess I could say that, is different from what you get in the US. I mean, there is overlap, but sometimes there's movies and shows that you get on Canada's Netflix. It's not different. It's not Canada's Netflix. It's just two different sort of places, because there's licensing involved and there's a whole kind of thing. Anyway, I know Shudder, there are things on Shudder that you get in the US that you wouldn't get if I got Shudder in Canada. I don't have Shudder. I did have Shudder about a year and a half ago, and I wasn't impressed. And I just was like, meh, I'm never going to watch any of this shit. Maybe Shudder has since come a long way. Like maybe they've actually got more stuff in their categories now, and maybe I'll check it out. Nothing against. I don't think it's bad. I just think when I initially signed up, wasn't a lot there, and I was like, meh. So I just got rid of my account. But I'll have to check it out again. Maybe they've because I know they're still around and they're building. They're building. I love the idea of Shudder. I think it's a great idea. Great idea. Great idea. Okay, we'll go for another 5 minutes, folks. Another 5 minutes, and then we will call it a day here on episode 54 of McRae Live. Great to see 141 people watching today. Great to see that. If you guys want to know my thoughts about how to sort of, again... Thanks, Google. I didn't even say, hey, Google. There's got to be something I'm saying where she pipes up. Calm down, Google. Calm down. Anyway, if you want to know my thoughts on how to craft sort of a micro-budgeted Halloween fan film, you obviously can go back and watch the beginning of the show where I tackle that. And I even I do kind of a bit of a, not really, but a soft director's commentary, if you will, on Haddonfield Reaper, which was the little 10-minute short that I did with Bruce a couple years ago. It wasn't really a director's commentary. I showed it to you really for the purposes of showing you how we shot it, and how that with just, taking your time and crafting certain shots, you can actually, make your little micro fan films actually not look too bad. Let me see here. Aaron Click says, Dave, what would you do differently, if anything, with Haddonfield Reaper now, but still shooting it on your phone? I have no idea, because Haddonfield Reaper was just, like I said, it was a spur of the moment thing. It was not really, it was planned. As soon as we knew that we wanted to do that, we sat down with a piece of paper and we wrote some things down, and you're a guy, we're going to go outside. Yes, and we wrote some things down, but it was spur of the moment. I don't think there's anything I would do differently, because it was really just an exercise to see if we could do what we did with nothing, and I think it turned out all right. There's a couple of shots maybe I think I might wanted to. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's pretty tight, all things considered. It's pretty signed, sealed, and delivered. When I look at my fan film Halloween the Night He Came Back, now that was too long. I think it should have been shorter, and shot well, looks beautiful, but there's the story got away from me a bit, and I think I was a little too ambiguous. So with that, I think I would have been less ambiguous than I was, because I was planning on doing another one, but that never ended up happening. So there's things like that. You know what I mean? But like I said, with It's Me, Billy, that's a whole different beast right there. Because It's Me, Billy is we're tackling it as a professional, independent production. So it's a whole different ball game there, which I'm really looking forward to. It's Me, Billy, for those of you that don't know, is the Black Christmas fan film that I am this close to launching our Indiegogo campaign on. Really excited about that. Really excited. I'm really excited because the script's really good and the actors are just great. So fingers crossed that this COVID shit can fuck off and we can start raising some money for this movie, because we want to make it just as badly as you guys want to see it. So this is for you guys, for us, but it's for you guys as well. So but with the micro things I've done, because It's Me, Billy's not going to be micro in the world of fan films. That's kind of my thought, I guess. There's still some things in the night he came back that I'm actually very proud of. There's still some scenes, a few shots in there where I think we did really well. Like, we nailed it. Overall, I think it could have been a bit better. But there's some things in there that definitely I think are worthy of. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. But I'm my own worst critic, so I'll see things I'm like, yeah, we should have. But you know what? It was fun. It was fun to do, but it's one of the main reasons why with It's Me, Billy, I'm like, okay, now let's not fuck around here. Let's take it to the next level. And so we're really excited about it. And for those of you that, again, that may not know, It's Me, Billy is a Black Christmas fan film that I am in development on, and we are pursuing on a very serious level because we have connections here in Toronto, working in the entertainment and film industries, or film industry like we do. We are able to access certain things that we just didn't utilize before, I guess, because we just weren't really that passionate about it. But now we want to do that. And so we're really excited about the people we're getting on board, and the script that we've written and the potential of this. And so our Indiegogo campaign was going to launch in April, but we couldn't because of COVID-19. So obviously we didn't launch it in May. We're hoping we can launch it in June. We're hoping, because there's some great perks in there as well that I think you guys will dig. So really excited about it, man. Really excited about it. And and then of course we got Dylan's new Nightmare. I play Freddy Krueger in that. I mean, that's still coming as well. You know what I mean? So, and that'll be a high production value fan film as well. So really excited, man. Really excited. Can't tell you how excited I am for all this stuff. All right, just a couple more. Let's see here. Oh, okay. Mike Serrano says, Dave, I sent you the message, but it wasn't to your personal account. I sent it to All Things McRae. Oh, okay, love your work. Okay, I'll take a look. Did you send it today or was it a couple of days ago? I'll take a look, man. I'll take a look. And if your name is Mark Striano, then I'll look for that. Okay. Alex G says, Dave, you should have a segment letting people call into your show. Would be cool. Well, that's something that I want to do. It's just a matter of being able to set up a number for it. And setting up the software to be able to do it. There's a whole kind of thing involved. I have the technology to be able to do it, but I got to set all that up. That is a goal of mine to come in the future. Absolutely a goal of mine to come in the future. So don't forget to, or I should say, so look out for that. I don't know when, but it is something that I definitely want to do because I think it would be fun. I don't know if I'll turn the show into a call-in show, but there may be a segment, or there may be call-in Fridays or something, you know what I mean? Or, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. I don't know if I want to take calls every show, but certainly that is something that I think would be cool and that we are working towards. All right, folks, that is going to do it for me on episode 54 of McRae Live. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. I want to thank everybody who sent in super chats, of course. Really appreciate you guys supporting the channel in that way. Thank you to my moderators, Darren Sands, Frank Reichard, Tabitha Short, and Jason Nike. You guys are amazing, keeping the flow going. Frank, thank you so much for coming back, man, and letting us know you're okay. We love you, Frank. We're glad you're okay. And thank you to all the non-super chat questions as well. And of course, remember, if you did not get your question answered, it's never personal. I just always like to be thorough with my answers. Try again on Thursday. Folks, I will be back, if I'm not back in between now and Thursday, with a standalone video, which sometimes I am. I will be back Thursday morning, 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, excuse me, I said that kind of weird, for episode 55 of McRae Live. It's hard to believe we're moving into 55 episodes already. You guys are amazing. No, I'm serious. You guys are. I mean, listen, if you guys weren't here, I wouldn't I wouldn't be doing this. That's right. You're all McRazies. You're McRazies. That's what you are. That's what you are. Oh, and by the way, we now have a Facebook page for patrons only. If that's something, if you're thinking about, maybe I'm becoming a patron, maybe I won't, I don't know. If you're on the fence about it and that's something that interests you, we do have now a Patreon only Facebook page for patrons to shoot the shit and talk about movies and things like that as well. And it's open to every level. So it's open to tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. Just to let you guys know, that's new as of about a week. Well, no, maybe 5 days or so ago. Maybe not quite a week. Jason Nike, one of our moderators and patrons, brought it to my attention. And I was like, that's a fantastic fucking idea. I was thinking about doing that like a year or so ago, and then I totally forgot about it. And Jason brought it to my to the forefront of my mind again. And I was like, yes, let's do it. So if that's something that interests you, you can think about that as well. So anyway, I am going to take off now. You guys are great. And in the meantime and in between time, I will talk to you guys soon. Alrighty. Cheers.